There was only one critic, Jonathan Ventor, who took an interest in what we were doing and wrote about us in Studio International. We were very lucky that one of the people that came on to the first meeting was a diminutive figure called Gustav Metzger. If you don't know about him, he's one of the most, in my view, important artists in this country or indeed in the world. And he offered to become editor of our bulletin page. I've laid out some recent numbers here. I became chairman of that group and got involved in lots of things in the BCS because of that. And indeed, in the end, I became chairman of the specialist group board, which at that time, when specialist groups and the branches were valued as the main part of the BCS, or at least is a very important part of the BCS, unlike now when we seem to be pushed well down the hierarchy and it's rather difficult to find where we are if you look at their website. A disgraceful situation, in my view, entirely due to the corporatisation of the BCS by a number of their employees who, in my view, if I had anything to do with it, would be sacked. But they have the good thing about the BCS that they support. I was the only person, by the way, at that time in the Computer Art Society who I think even was a BCS member. And I was the one who didn't want it to become part of the BCS. So I thought it would put off artists when we saw this Computer Society. But I was overruled. I was the chairman for the first 10 years of that specialist group. And then I was elected, surprisingly, to become chairman of the specialist group board. At that time, I was saying this was important, and I became a vice president, and the BCS took over my life for 3 or 4 years. In the mid-80s, the Computer Art Society went into decline and became inactive. And then in about 2002, a group at Berkeley got some money from Europe to do a study of computer arts in this country up to 1980. And that brought some of us together again, and we decided in about 2003 to reform the Computer Art Society, and we did, and the BCS, but continued without paying much attention to us to the generous funders of many of our activities. I'm now the editor of Page, the restarted republishing Page, which is our bulletin, and I've laid out some of the recent copies here. Those are the single copies. It so happens that the latest one, page 67, we got from the printers today, and if you'd like a copy, it's devoted to an interview that Gustav Metzger, the then editor, and I did with Buckminster Fuller in 1970, which as far as we know hasn't been published anywhere else.
Show us some pictures, Alan.
Yes, I'm going to now. That's all I'm going to say about how the Computer Art Society, not the British Computer Art Society, because I'll just say one last thing. From the beginning, it's been an international body, and because there wasn't anything else like it in the world, and we had many. After about the first year, we had members in 16 or 17 different countries. Okay. A while ago, we were going to do an issue on randomness, and I thought I'd make some pictures to go with this. I had, at the time, just sort of an idea of dissecting polygons. You see an example here, a regular hexagon, and you take the midpoint of one side and you draw a line towards the opposite, but if it's got an even number, the midpoint in the middle of the opposite side, or if it's got an odd number, towards the opposite vertex. I've chosen, in this case, the proportion of that distance is roughly so that the resulting polygons are of roughly equal size. So the way my program works in this first elementary form is that you gave it the coordinates of the polygon, and it drew first of all this first hierarchy, this first level. You'll notice that the hexagon is necessarily repeated in the centre because there are 6 sides, which lead to 6 vertices, and that you will see continues. The other things are pentagons, and that is what generally happens. So, next. So at the next stage, the pentagons are subdivided in the same way, and this process goes on. And now you can see that what happens to the hexagon is that it's rotated and then through 90 degrees, and then it's rotated again, and so at each level it's just rotated once, and all the other polygons in the outer area are all pentagons. And so it goes on. And sometimes, depends perhaps what angle you're looking at, you may see some three-dimensional effects, some sloping where round about here, for example. Sometimes I see it, sometimes I don't. And one more. Again. Okay. So we're going to do an issue on randomness, and I thought I'll take this and I'll vary whatever variables there are in the program and do a sequence. And so they come in, not entirely, often in batches of 5, as you'll see. So this is merely covering the struts, as I call it. Next. So just go through and 2 or 3 more. And that's not very interesting, which is perhaps another. Okay, now what happens in this case? Next one. This is simply increasing the thickening, different thicknesses of the lines. Next. And they begin to get perhaps a bit interesting. There we are. I don't remember the details of these programs, which was written a couple of years ago, and I don't keep copies of every version of the program. I'm just fiddling about the variables to get different effects. Now, in this case, there's a separation. In my program, there's a separate routine for subdividing a hexagon and for subdividing a pentagon. The hexagon one hasn't been disturbed, so you see the hexagons quite clearly. But the place that the lines are pointing to is not where it should be, but it's some corner of the picture, so they're all going up in that direction. So show the next 3 or 4. And of course you get some overlapping, and see more of that in there. Okay. Now, I was pleased to find that my program was just as happy to take an irregular, in this case pentagon, as a regular one. So I just gave it random coordinates and let it run, but still keeping the proportion of this about the same, keeping it the midpoint, and it is at least approximately pointing at the opposite vertex. Next. And these aren't more distorted. Here there's some overlapping. I think the fifth vertex is in there somewhere, but then there's some overlapping between again. And even if the vertices aren't in order, it's still the program is going to have to do what it was told. And also various other forms of dislocation, the elements not quite coming from where or matching up their endpoints with where they should be, carry on, and this gets more and more disturbed. And then this is a slight, I can't tell you the difference, but this is a slightly different version of the same sort of thing. So there are 4 more of these. Disturbed. Indeed, most of it's gone out of the frame of the picture. That's another set of dislocations in which eventually almost all of the drawing is somewhere else. In this case I took the, just the original hexagon and put in first of all one black rectangle and applying the XOR function. So it's inverted. And then another rectangle appears, and these are just done at random. Where they go. And then 2 or 3 more, quite a lot more, and so many more that it sort of you can't see the original. In this case, it's a different sort of dislocation. This is a copy of this area, just moved down, and of course it brought this blank area with it. That's not very exciting, but see the next one, and here we come. I'm not supposed to, it's like children and grandchildren, you're not supposed to have favourites, you know, they're all the same, they're not equal, never have favourites, it's not fair, but I'm afraid, and I'm very happy to talk about what I do and how I've done it, but I'm not prepared to talk about the so-called philosophy of these things. Is it art? That sort of silly art discussion. Which is a huge industry, by the way. Really a joke. There are hundreds of PhD students racking their brains. And of course a whole army of critics as well. Wet people. This is a favourite argument of mine. What happens is that it's a lossless distortion. The centre of the picture here, perhaps the best way to describe it is that first of all, imagine that I've drawn a line which is more or less continuous, it doesn't jump about very much, and it begins here and it ends up at 0 there. And I've got a vertical line a bit the same. And so I shuffle the line, the horizontal line, the rows of the image by that amount, so it's becomes staggered, and I do the same, moving them up and down a bit vertically. And that's quite a few generations of doing that. I don't remember, probably about 10. You see the next one, but of course you can still see